All right, we are live.
Hello, everybody.
Should be seeing something here on.
Are we live? Are we live?
Yes, we are live.
Is it here yet? I wanted to show that shouldn't be showing. That shouldn't be showing. There we are. Hi, everybody.
Hello,
I need to show you guys something. It's very exciting. It's very exciting, I promise. Okay, here we go. Oh, roll call, but first, this. That was the temperature today by the beach in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
3 degrees less than Las Vegas, according to Sandy. Allison has an echo. Does anybody else hear an echo? No echo on it for Sandy.
Do you have maybe two sources there, Ed? Possibly?
Yeah, Ed, I think the echo's in your head. Oh, you thought you heard an echo and then it was gone. Yes, it is toasty. Sounds like I'm in a chamber. Am I on the wrong microphone?
Oh, good question.
Let's take a look. So I am, let's see. If we look at the live show here, there's audio hijack, Elgato Wave XLR, good. And to Al's mic. And then Al's mic goes into with, let's see, let's just take a look here.
That
if you heard the playback, it has to be the
so
right
that
one.
Does it sound different now, Ed? Because I think I had something coming out of my speakers, which I think I've now fixed.
Ah.
So Ed, give me another sound check. Do you still hear an echo? Why don't you talk again, Al?
Okay, this is me talking. And Aliha, I didn't put any alt text on that image. It was 104 degrees at our house.
Okay.
Hotter in Tucson.
So Ed was hearing an echo.
So it was something to do with your output, huh?
Right, audio on my speakers.
So Ed, can you figure out why I can't hear Steve? Yeah. Okay. We had a roll call and I did not obey, so it is not Al's fault that we are late. But we have Aliha and Sheamus and Kevin and Bruce and Frank and Jill and Ed and John and Richard. Richard, how are you? Haven't seen you in a little bit. And Rick is back after a bit of an absence there. And Sandy and Steve and Michael and Al. And I'm not sure if we're going to see people in the sidebar anymore. Oh, so it says WidgetBot. What do you guys think of the new Discord pop out on the webpage? What do you guys think of that? Or are you guys all on the clients? Anybody? I don't see it. You're in the app. Okay. Client? Yeah. Is anybody on the web and seeing it? Maybe you guys don't care. App.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to get anyone.
Well, somebody go over to podfeed.com/live and look at it. It's all new design. It's very exciting.
I'll do it.
Okay. In Discord on a Windows machine. Oh, nice, John. Client and web for video. Okay, so the web for video, you could push the button and you could see it. Be very exciting. App there. Okay, all right. So the web for... Okay, I can hear myself talking.
Yeah, I just played it. This was set for my speakers, but it seems to look fine. I'm not going to log into Discord again, though.
Okay. Discord app on my phone. Oh, you're at the rescue squad. All right. Well, we should probably get started now that we've got roll call going. I can't mute you, Steve, so mute yourself if you would.
Got it.
Failed to start record. No tracks are enabled. There we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeed.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, September 4th, 2022, and this is show number 904. Well, the next Apple announcement event is scheduled for Wednesday, 7 September at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And as always, Steve and I will be in the live chat room at podfeed.com/chat during the event. We hope you'll join us. We don't broadcast any video or audio. We'll be text chatting along with the rest of you. Now, if you've been in the chat before, you know you can go to the Discord, which is where you'll get to if you go to podfeed.com/chat and you haven't been there before. If you've never been to the... Oh, crapes. I had that all written out and I ad-libbed it. Now, if you've been in the If you've never been to the chat room before, the link I just said, podfeet.com/Slack, will take you to Discord on the web where you can sign up for Discord to view and participate. If you'd rather... Nope, that first part is no longer true. I was going to say, you don't have to sign up for an account, but you do now. All right. Once you have an account, you can also get into the Discord from podfeet.com/live. I really hope you'll come. It's a lot of fun. The NosillaCast ways chatter away, and we talk about the prices and whether we think things are cool and whether Federighi's hair was exciting this time. I mean, it's super useful. Anyway, we have a great time, and we hope you'll join us. How long is that? With the rest of you. If you've never been to the chat room before, the link and participate. Once you have an account, okay, there we go. Rose. All right.
Hello, Rose. Now. Hey, I have a question. We're going to get to Chit Chat 742, but I didn't see 741 in your post. That's the one with Tom? Was that last week?
I don't understand the question you're talking about.
Okay, in show 904, the one we're doing tonight.
Oh, God, did I do that one this week, too? Did I do two?
I thought you did. Oh, my gosh.
I think you're right. Thank you. Let's look at Podfeet. When was that? When was that published? Look at that. That was 2 this week.
Yeah, that's September 1st, which was after the last show.
Yep, you're right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Let's see. All right, so I'll put that in here. You will not see this. Okay, and I'll do that as like that.
Kevin looked a little surprised.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do the DTNS thing first.
Okay.
And
then 741, then 742?
Yeah. It's doing that thing again. There we go. Last week it didn't do it. All right. Muting Steve. This week, I had the pleasure of being on the Daily Tech News Show on Tuesday, where Tom, Sarah, and I talked about the new Twitter Circles feature to allow you to tweet just to your close friends. We also talk about a new social media app in China called Soul that doesn't allow you to use your real likeness. You have to use an avatar. The California legislature just unanimously passed a regulation with the goal of protecting users under 18 on social media platforms, but it turns out there's a lot of debate about whether this is actually good law. We got into that discussion really deep, and you can check it all out at dailytechnewsshow.com, and that's episode number 4344. All right. Okay. Here we go. All right. How do I want to feed into this? This week, you're actually going to get 2 Chit Chat across the ponds. As if I hadn't had enough fun with Tom on Daily Tech News Show, I had him on Chit Chat Across the Pond this week to talk about a recent study published by Sweden's biggest car magazine. The study timed drivers and how long it took them to perform a set of prescribed functions in a variety of cars with touchscreens and one vehicle without any touchscreen at all. This is an interesting episode because Tom and I disagree quite a bit on this episode, and we both keep trying to make our points, and neither one of us convinces the other one that the other one is correct. The only thing we do agree with is that there are a lot of flaws in this study, but it is still a really interesting topic to think about whether touchscreens are a good thing or a bad thing versus dials and knobs. And as I said during this episode, I can sit alone in a room and have that argument with myself. If you want to watch this, or I'm sorry, if you want to listen to this, find Chit Chat Across the Pond number 741, and it's a Chit Chat Across the Pond light, of course, with Tom Merritt on touchscreens versus buttons in cars. There's a lot of ad-libbing. Look at me go. All right. Try this again. Copy link. There we go. And I think I want to slide that out just a little bit of a smidge to there. There we go. And save. All right. And I'm so glad you caught that, Steve.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that I just completely forgot. I actually forgot that there was a programming by stealth this week. That's why I did the one with Tom this week too. So is it? Frank is saying spell check. It's Allison wrote proscribed, not prescribed. I thought it would be proscribed. Maybe we can get Sandy to weigh in on that one. I thought it was proscribed. I did that one on purpose. Not can't blame anybody. I will come back and look at the proscribe is to prohibit. Oh, well, look at you guys knowing stuff. Huh. All right. Someone's got to remind me where I wrote it. Actually, if I fix it right now, I won't have to remember.
No, I can see it in the first paragraph of that. You want me to edit
Oh, you
it?
can fix it.
Yeah.
You want to fix it for me?
Yep.
Hot diggity. All right. Steve's on the job. I really appreciate when you do that, Steve. Sip of water.
Fix.
And I have always misunderstood that word. Thanks, Steve. Okay, muting Steve. For our second Chit Chat Across the Pond, we've got Bart Buchatz back with Programming by Stealth 139 of X. In our last installment of PBS, Bart started teaching us how to bundle an app/website into using our bundler of choice, Webpack. The app or website he's creating for us in these lessons is very simplified, but it's intended to allow us to exercise every one of the kinds of things we would probably want to bundle. This week, we finish all of the tools he wanted to teach us to bundle. In PBS 138, the previous episode, after explaining to us why we would want to do this bundling thing in the first place and how to initialize things, he taught us to import a pure JavaScript library with jQuery as an example and a pure CSS library with basic Bootstrap as the example. In this week's show, we learned how to install and use Mustache for templating in a Webpack world. The process is quite a bit different from how we originally learned to implement Mustache in Programming by Stealth. About 50% of PBS ago is when we first learned to do that. Then we learned how Bootstrap 5 now lets us import just what we need instead of all of Bootstrap. We need some fancy icons, so Bart teaches us about Bootstrap icons, which he now favors for free icons over Font Awesome. Our web app wouldn't be complete if we didn't have a fun font, right? So we learned to import free fonts from a source called Font Source, and we do that all with Webpack. Like the first half of the Webpack worked example, Bart's process of doing repetitive actions but for different reasons definitely helped cement the concepts for me. You can find Bart's fabulous tutorial show notes over at pbs.bartificer.net, and you can find Programming by Stealth number 139 of X in your podcatcher of choice. I said save. Okay. All right. Whew. Now, I go back over here.
Marianne time.
What's that? Oh,
Marianne
yeah, Marianne
time.
Is that what we're doing now?
I think so.
Okay, why are you open? I want this one. Okay. Yeah, so Dr. Gary's just doing an ad here, but it's kind of interesting. She says it's a shameless plug. I will, this is a long title. Yeah. Well, that's what the chapter mark's going to be huge. Okay. This one comes up and in. I think I have to split these for you to be able to hear it. Oh, I did it as mono, so I think you'll be able to hear both halves of this. All right, let me give you the setup for this one. How was Tom's time intro for Chit Chat this time? I don't understand the question, Sheamus. Of choice. I'm not exactly sure how to tee up this next conversation, but if you've been listening to the show for a while, you've probably heard me talk frequently about Dr. Marianne Gary. She studies memory she's a professor at the University of Waikato in New Zealand, and she's got this thing that she's doing. She's doing this thing with Tom Merritt and a couple of other scientists, and I don't understand what the thing is, and she wants us to watch it, and so this is a shameless plug for that, where she's going to explain to us what it is, this thing that she's doing. How's that for an intro, Marianne?
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Allison. That is actually quite accurate. I'm here to just hold hostage your audience for 10 minutes so I can shamelessly plug this thing we're doing. So here's the thing what we're doing. There is the world's largest association of people like me, psychological scientists, some 30,000 members across the globe, has put together a number of, they're calling them global collaborations, to talk about what could we have done better in the pandemic. And
okay, we aren't going to play this whole thing, but mark your calendars for, let's see, let me give you the date and time here. I'm going to give it to you like this. Oh, there you go. Thank you for that piece. Let me give you the time for this. So Marianne and Tom and two other scientists are going to be on this panel. It's going to be on YouTube Live, and there's going to be a place you can put in questions. And she really, really wants people to go and ask questions. So the topic is about how memory is a problem with COVID contact tracing. And so that kind of starts folding into the technical angle, which is the Google and Apple apps and the integration in with the OSs that Apple wants people to ask questions. So if you can go and ask questions, that would make Marianne happy. Plus, it sounds really interesting. Plus, more Tom Merritt, more Marianne, it's got to be good. All right, let me see how we end.
Me up, Dr. Lambchop on Twitter.
Great call sign.
Okay. I'm going to say a little bit at the end here. Now, I talked a bit to Marianne after the recording, and she said she's really worried that people won't ask questions. So if you go watch this, watch and listen to this, do ask questions. If you have questions, please ask them, because she really wants to get people engaged in and help them make this panel be as good as it can be. Oh, is it a bad time for you, Sandy? All right, let's see, chapter mark. I don't know if Graham... Okay, so this is a funny story. Do peeps know who Lamb Chop was? Yes. Actually, ask Tesla to go get her Lamb Chop.
I don't... Well, she's not that smart, unfortunately.
Dumb as a stick.
I could go get lamb chops, though.
No, that's okay. Let's see. Now, I don't remember whether this guy introduces himself, but...
yes, Sheamus.
Right, the sock puppet, yes. I actually have a story about... what was her name? Sherry Lewis was the woman that used Lamb Chop as the puppet. And a friend of mine was working in the worst job on earth. It was lost luggage at TWA. So this is like 100 years ago when Sherry Lewis was famous and doing this Lamb Chops puppet thing. She checked Lamb Chops in her luggage, and they lost her luggage. And she got so angry at my friend for explaining that the luggage was lost that she grabbed, those big steel chunk things that you do the credit cards with. They used to do that. She picked it up and threw it at him. That was the day he quit his job working at TWA. Now, can't verify that story, but I heard it from the guy that it happened to. So, oh, here comes Steve with Lamb Chop. I always think of that story when people bring that up. Oh, there's Lamb Chop. Marianne doesn't think it's funny at all that that our dog gets to run around with that. All right. I don't know if I like Lamb Chop with mint jelly. So here's a funny story. When I first posted the article for this piece, it's by a guy named Graham S. Graeme. Now, I've known Graham S. for a long time. He's written to me before, and so I thought this was Graham Smale. I found it's Graham Shepherd. So I originally posted this incorrectly. So if you saw it go up, the message go up and then suddenly disappear, that's why. So let's see if he introduces himself. He has a great voice. Ah, nope, don't record. Play. It'll be as good as it can be.
I've been interested in photography for many years.
Oh, is that the best voice? Sorry. Alistair. Sorry.
Good voice.
Okay. And get this, he doesn't have any background in radio. Unbelievable. All right, let me record an intro there. Next up, we have a listener contribution by Graham Shepard, and I think you're going to really like this. It sounds like a terrific app, and boy, does he have a great voice. Be as good as it can be. Next up, we have a listener contribution by Graham Shepard, and I think you're going to really like this. It sounds like a terrific app, and boy, does he have a great voice.
I've been interested in photography for many years, and recently I moved away from my focus on nimble photography and decided to return to RAW. It's a long story that I may come back to another time, but today's focus is on getting the photos off my SD card and onto my computer with as little fuss as possible. In January, I stumbled across Photoreviewer on the Mac App Store. Amazingly, it's a free piece of software that runs natively on Apple Silicon, and it does one job incredibly well. When I plug an SD card into my computer, the opening screen pops up and lets me get started. The screen is simple, letting me choose the review folder, a couple of simple options, and a window to let me import photos from a camera to the review folder. I've created a local folder on my computer so I don't have lots of photos trying to upload to iCloud, and I've called it Photoreviewer. Inside that folder, I have two more folders called Approved and Vetoed for reasons we'll get into later. Once I have the new photos in...
You can't see it on the Discord app. Oh, he wants a photo of it. He's showing it in the video. All right, we're going to make you listen to me for a while. Boy, this is going to be long. That show is already...
to move to this if they already use Lightroom.
Thank you so much for this, Graham. This is a really nifty app. I can't believe the capabilities of this, and for a free piece of software. This looks fantastic and will definitely solve a problem for me the next time I dust off my big girl camera. All right. So, what did you do? It's time for a rant. All right, sit back.
This is going to be a big rant.
Yeah, it is. Did I put too much in this show? Why did you have me play Marianne? Marianne was supposed to be... Oh, because it was supposed to be then. What is the one for after?
Next is
Oh, Lord.
Migration Assistant.
I was going to do Bodhi this week, but I don't think I'm going to. Shoot.
Why is that a shoot?
Just, it's going to be a really long show.
If you add Bodhi?
Yeah, but I already kind of promised it. Well, I gotta think.
Well, maybe you don't do Migration Assistant.
Oh, I got to do it.
To get it off your
It's going to be a different
chest.
story next week. Yeah, I have to do it now. All right. Here we go. Muting Steve. If you've been following along with our home game for a long time, you know I'm a huge proponent of doing a nuke and pave to your Mac when you get a new computer. Or when I get a new computer, I should say. A nuke and pave means a full reinstall of macOS, followed by a reinstall of every single application from a fresh download, and then reconfiguring everything by hand. Only data is dragged back to the drive. Doing a nuke and pave is an awful lot of work, but my experiences in the last few weeks have cemented my belief that it's a good idea. Let me give a refresher on why this topic is yet again at the forefront of my mind. I bought a new 14-inch M1 MacBook Pro in November when they first came out. I did not use Migration Assistant 9 months ago, or maybe it's 10 months ago now. I installed all of my apps from scratch, and I dragged my data over. Now, I've documented my process for nuking and paving most recently in my blog post from February of 2021. It's entitled Nuke and Pave 2021, All New Enhancements. Anyway, my new Mac ran clean and snappy and had no fiddliness after a good week of work getting everything the way I wanted it. I do a lot of customizations with my OS and my tools, so my iThoughts mind map, which documents the mission-critical, important, and less important apps and settings, is a lifesaver. Everything was dandy till a few months ago when I started noticing some problems. My battery wasn't lasting as long as it did when I first got the laptop. Long battery life is one of the great joys of the Apple silicon chips, so it was noticeable when it started to diminish. The second problem was tougher. It was that Spotlight kept reindexing my drive. At first, I thought that was the cause of the reduced battery life, since indexing does take a lot of power when the Mac would otherwise be idling. But reindexing wasn't the only problem with Spotlight. While Spotlight was indexing my drive, it worked just fine as an app launcher. It could find all of my apps. But when it finishes indexing, it can't find any of the Apple apps. Oddly, it can always find third-party apps. It's just the Apple apps it can't find. In addition to not being able to find the Apple apps, it couldn't search within Apple apps either. I couldn't search inside Calendar or Mail, and I just happened to open system information at one point to look at my list of installed apps, and there were no apps listed there at all. Eventually, my Mac would start indexing again and search would work, but the next time it finished, it would be broken again. Steve, can you change, I said it couldn't search with Apple apps either. That should say within Apple apps. Do you see that?
I wasn't following along, so I don't know where you are.
Look for with Apple apps either. And then you should see it there. It should say within Apple apps.
With Apple apps?
Yeah, with Apple apps either. Okay, I'm going to start recording again.
And it should be with Apple apps.
Within. Within Apple
Okay.
apps. Okay, here we go. Now, Apple has a handy-dandy support article on how to rebuild the Spotlight index to solve problems like this. The trick is to open System Preferences, Spotlight, to the Privacy tab. This is where you can add any folders you don't want Spotlight to index. So to stop and then restart indexing of your entire drive, you drag your entire drive into that Privacy tab, quit System Preferences, open it up again, and then drag your drive back out. However, that didn't fix the problem. There's also a terminal command called mdutil that's supposed to fix the same kinds of issues. If you add the "E" flag to the command, it will cause each local store for the volumes indicated to be erased and then to be rebuilt if appropriate. If you throw a final / to the end of the command, that will tell mdutil to do the entire drive. But that didn't fix the problem either. I enlisted my good friend and Apple certified consultant Pat Dengler to help me, and she used her phone a friend option to contact her friend Scott, who suggested a command called lsregister. Now, if you look up lsregister in the terminal and you ask for the manual page for it, there isn't one. But the great Howard Oakley from Eclectic Light wrote a long blog post explaining the command in detail over at his website, eclecticlight.co. Now, I'm popping the command into the show notes that I got from Scott, this crazy command about lsregister, but I'm not going to make any attempt to explain it because it's really complicated. But it doesn't really matter because that didn't work either. I tried Spotlight in a clean user account. That's the best way to find out what's going on. And the exact same problems occurred with Spotlight. Now, in a turn of completely inexplicable events, my Screencast Online account, which is highly tailored, is not clean at all, never experienced these problems. Now, after more than a month of fighting with the Spotlight problem, I cried uncle, and I called AppleCare. My new friend Solomon worked on the problem with me for hours and hours over the course of a few weeks, and while we didn't solve the Spotlight problem, he did get approval to replace the battery on my nearly new MacBook Pro. Normally, you can't get a new battery under warranty until the full charge capacity goes below 90%, but mine had dropped to 94% in such a short amount of time that he fought for me and he won. When I got the Mac back from AppleCare, as often happens, it was... Wait. When I got... As often happens when you send a computer into AppleCare, my drive was wiped. When I got it back for the first time ever, I decided to recover all of my data, all of my applications, and all of my settings using Migration Assistant. I only had one day to put it together, so I had to. I will never do this again. To start with, my Spotlight problems came right back with Migration Assistant, and now I've spent even more time with my friend Solomon. Engineering at Apple has come back with seemingly intelligent things for me to do, such as uninstalling 7 applications that use the MD Importer plugin for Spotlight. 4 of these apps were mission-critical apps. Didn't matter, didn't fix the problem. Then they sent me, or they had me send them, I should say, several Spotlight log files. It turns out in Activity Monitor, if you look at the little 3-dot menu, you can pull a log file from Spotlight. After that, they sent me a giant list of files buried inside my user library that they suggested I temporarily delete. Now, I might have been able to delete them, but putting them back would have been the hard part. And I might have gotten all this to work if it weren't, or I might have gone to all this work, I should say, if it weren't for all of the other problems that I'm having since using Migration Assistant. So even if you assume I fixed the Spotlight problem, it is still a hot mess. Now, doing a nuke and pave is a ton of work, like I said. But you know what? It's predictable work. You know, I have to install this, I have to configure that, I have to install this, I have to configure that. I've got a process set down, and if I follow it, I end up with a working machine. My experience with Migration Assistant is that it's a lot of work too, but you just don't know when you're suddenly going to be hit with that work, and you're going to be right in the middle of something, but it doesn't matter because you can't do what you need to do because you run into another one of these problems. The other thing is, a lot of these, I don't know how to fix them. I literally can't figure out how to fix these problems. Let me just give you an assortment of some of the issues that have popped up. After the drive was wiped, Backblaze lost the connectivity to my backup. This meant that I had to adopt my previous backup. Either through a software failure or more likely due to user error, I ended up adopting Steve's backup, so I had to delete both of them and start over for both of us. I lost some vital information when I did this that would have been handy later. Now that one's maybe not entirely Migration Assistant's fault. I would have probably had to do this Backblaze adoption, but it would have been in my list of things to do. I wouldn't have just missed the fact that it wasn't running. Let's see, every user account had to have Touch ID enabled again. Several of my startup items in my user accounts got lost, so I tried to use an app like CleanShot and nothing would happen. I had to stop what I was doing and go fix it. Even Bartender didn't start at login. Again, I would have had to make all these things start at login, doing it from scratch, but I would have known. I wouldn't be going, okay, I got to take a screenshot. Wait, where's screenshot X or CleanShot X? It's not running. Why isn't it running? Got to go diagnose it. Got to go find it. Where is it? Go add it. It's the unpredictability that's driving me crazy. Now, here's one of my favorites. 1Password's Safari extension broke in a really annoying way. If I command-tabbed over to Safari, it would briefly bring Safari to the foreground, so you could see up in the menu bar it said Safari, but then almost just a split second later, it would flip to say 1Password instead. And I would only notice that if I looked at the menu bar. So I'd start typing, trying to type into Safari, and nothing would be happening. I couldn't type in the URL bar because it's not in the foreground. I am somehow in this mutant, invisible 1Password. The way to fix that is you have to uninstall 1Password completely. Uninstalling 1Password means you have to quit 1Password first. Turns out it's not the regular quit though. You have to do a double secret quit, and there's a secret keystroke you must invoke in order to fully quit the app. Well, I keep the double secret keystroke in my app Keep It, and so I had to go find that. I had to open it up and do it. So only then could I tootle off to the Mac App Store to download 1Password. Now wait, the Mac App Store gave me 1Password 7, not 8. So that meant I had to do the double secret keystroke to quit 1Password again. I had to uninstall it again, find the link to the download at 1Password.com and reinstall it. And then try to remember, what was it I was trying to do in Safari in the first place? Again, I would have had to download and install 1Password from scratch, but I would have known where to do it, how to do it. It was in my documentation. It would have been predictable. It would have been the very first thing I did when I set up my new machine. Now let's see, this one's a little weird. I use a WordPress plugin called Updraft Plus. So that's on my website, and it downloads a backup of my website to Dropbox once a week. It also monitors Dropbox, and it deletes older backups automatically. But after Migration Assistant, every single time Updraft Plus wants to delete a file, I get a pop-up asking me if it's okay to delete for everyone. I don't know who everyone is. Maybe that's me and the app both have privileges, but I get over a half a dozen of these notifications, one after another, once a week, and I don't know how to make them stop. Here's a really fun one. Upon boot up, System Preferences opens to extensions, Finder extensions, every single time I boot up. Sometimes it happens when I wake from sleep. So what the heck is causing that? Is there some plist somewhere? I don't know. Here's another plist one. On a Mac, you have tons of hidden files. They're affectionately referred to as dot files because their names start with a period. You can see them at any time you like in the Finder if you hold down Command, Shift, period, or dot. And to make them disappear again, you hit the same keystroke. I know this keystroke. I'm good at that. While it's cool, I don't want to see my hidden files. But after Migration Assistant, upon boot up, Finder always showed me hidden files. I could disable their visibility, reboot, and they'd be visible again the next time. I lived with this for weeks before I finally took time out of my schedule to go hunting for a way to make this stop. I found an Apple discussion article in which Leroy Douglas suggested that the Finder plist might be corrupted. I deleted that plist file and it fixed the problem. But why did Migration Assistant corrupt this plist? Or where did it get corrupted? How did it get corrupted? Did it get corrupted in my backup? I don't know. It was fine when I created the backup, though. It was working before my drive got wiped. So this one, I put this all on Migration Assistant. Now I have a separate volume on my Mac for my Screencast Online work. I had previously set the permissions so that my main Allison user account could read and write to it along with my Screencast Online user account. I did that by creating a group in System Preferences, Users and Groups, that has both my Allison and my Screencast Online user accounts in it. I then gave the volume permissions recursively to everything inside the folder that I needed. The existence of this group was not maintained by Migration Assistant, requiring me to recreate it. Again, my workflow was entirely interrupted by this unpredictable behavior. I would have had to have done that on my new clean install, but I would have known to do it. Now, we all remember how hard I worked to be able to connect to my Synology network attached storage automatically for my Hazel scripts to work, right? You don't want me to go through that again. That was a long one. After Migration Assistant transferred over all my files and settings, I can no longer use Go Connect to Server to connect to my Synology over SMB. That means my Keyboard Maestro macro won't work because it uses that command. I verified that the identical command on my Mac Mini works just fine, and it works for Steve on his Mac Studio, so there's nothing wrong with the Synology or the network. I didn't have any idea how to make SMB connections work again. Here's an interesting weirdness. This week, or today I should say, I tried it and it worked. I have no idea why it wasn't working for the last 3 weeks, but it worked this week. Today, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Why did it stop working? Now it started working again. It's unpredictable. On a related note, Steve and I often connect each other's Macs over our local network to drop files to each other. The other day, Steve opened a Finder window, scrolled in the left sidebar to Locations, and saw Al Macs in the sidebar. That's great. When he selected it, he could see the top level, so he selected the Allison user account, which revealed the expected folders like Applications, Desktop, and Documents. I had already created a folder on my desktop into which he was going to drop the files. He selected Desktop, and it said, "You have 0 items on that desktop folder." That is a lie. I currently have 12 files and folders on my desktop. When he selected my Applications folder, it revealed to him all of my apps. But my Documents folder was as empty as my desktop when he tried to view the contents. Every other folder we checked revealed the actual contents. Now, you may be thinking of the reason why. The only thing that Desktop and Documents have in common is that I'm syncing those to iCloud. Now, Pat Dingler said, well, wait a minute. The files aren't actually there. They're in iCloud, so they would never show. But they have always showed before. So I just have to add this to the long list of, I have no idea how to fix this, caused by Migration Assistant. Our workaround has been I've used the same exact process to connect into Steve's Mac, and I can see his Mac, and I can see his desktop. He puts the files there, and then I drag them over to my desktop. So it's working one way. I don't know why it's not working the other way. Now here's the doozy. I have saved my favorite problem for the last. While I'm proud of myself for cracking the code to fix this problem, it was the final straw that convinced me that I really do truly need to do a nuke and pave. I simply cannot have my workflow constantly interrupted by these crazy side effects of using Migration Assistant. Here's the doozy. I use the app Hindenburg to record the podcasts. Hindenburg allows you to pull in audio clips as favorites and show them in a list inside the app. The jingles you hear throughout the show are all favorites. Last week, when I was going to record my Tiny Mac Tip segment, I tried to drag in the Tiny Tips jingle, but I got an error. I tested a couple of the other favorites, like the intro and outro music, and they all worked just fine. It was only the Tiny Tips jingle that wouldn't work. I was disconcerted by this, but I knew I also have a copy of the jingle over in Keep It. But get this, in Keep It, the file showed that it was 0 seconds long, and it could not play the file. I needed to keep going with the show, so I just didn't use a jingle at all last week, deciding to diagnose the problem later. Again, all of these interruptions. When I had time to investigate, I took a closer look at what was happening, and I realized Hindenburg was actually giving me a permissions error. So Hindenburg keeps favorites in tilde library application support Hindenburg favorites. Now, actually, Steve, I have another typo for you. Do you see where it says tilde/library applications, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
There's a typo in that. It should be the other slash going the other direction, and there should not be a space between tilde and that slash.
The first
So it
slash should be forward, not back.
I never know which one's forward and back. The one under the
one
question
that's
mark.
not consistent.
Yeah, and there should be no space between the two.
Got it.
Now, thank you. Surprised nobody caught that one. I didn't make the typo. I first looked at the Tiny Tips jingle in that folder via the Finder, and I did a get info on it to view the permissions. But instead of showing me the name of the owner of the file, it had a spinning cogwheel and the word fetching next to it. In all my many years using a Mac, I have never seen this before. It's time to get serious and use the terminal to look under the hood at permissions. I navigated to the favorites directory for Hindenburg, and I discovered that every single jingle had Allison as the owner, except the Tiny Tips jingle. That one was owned by user ID 504. Now, you may not realize this, but every user account has a unique ID. You can see them in a pretty easy way. If you unlock users and groups in System Preferences, you can right-click on any username, and you'll see an option that says Advanced Options, ... From there, you can see the user ID for that user. I inspected every single one of the accounts on my Mac, and none of them had a user ID of 504. This explains why GetInfo was never able to figure out who owned that file, because it was a non-existent account. Now I fixed the problem by changing the owner to Allison with a command that's of course in the show notes, sudo chown Allison, followed by the name of the file. But the real question is, why did Migration Assistant munge that one file by assigning permissions to a user ID that did not exist? I'm betting that 504 used to exist and it changed all the other ones over to Allison, but it didn't change this one. But maybe my user ID was 504 before, but it isn't now. But why that one? Was that like a neutrino came through and did that? I don't know. The bottom line is that I was delighted that Migration Assistant moved my massive 985 gigabyte photos library over to the nuked Mac and did not require me to wait for it to check every single image and video to see if it was in iCloud. But that was the only thing I enjoyed about Migration Assistant. I feel like my Mac is a minefield of disasters waiting for me at every turn. I complained about Migration Assistant in the Podfeet Slack, podfeet.com/Slack, and Jim responded. He wrote this very helpful little message. Used Migration Assistant back in January 2021 when I got my 27-inch 2020 iMac. Worked well, no issues. Had a lot of third-party software as well as Apple software. Oh, I did have to tell Microsoft about my home and student one machine standalone Office, deleting the old machine, but that wasn't Apple's problem. Well, I'm really happy for you, Jim. Truly, I'm not jealous or bitter at all about that. Well, I've got some open time next week, so stay tuned for episode 2493 of the long-running series, Allison Does a Nuke and Pave.
We're not bitter, are we?
Why did I do that? No.
Not at all.
Stop.
So Jill had
oh
a
my
great
gosh,
comment.
it's not stopping. Sorry, what?
Jill's comment was the best. I would go back to Windows if this happened to me.
Sheesh. All right, it's time for pledge break. Let's see. Boy, there's a lot of chapters in this one. Bittersweet. I'm sorry you're leaving Mac OS. I'm not leaving Mac OS, Al. Jill just said she would. All right. There's a podcast I really enjoy, but it starts with a 2-minute ad spot. And then there's another ad spot in the middle of the show. That might not be too bad, but the show is only 14 minutes long, so the ads are nearly 30% of the show. I gotta say, this has become more and more the norm with a lot of podcasts. But you know what? That's not true with any of the Podfeet podcasts, because we don't run ads. We depend on the listeners to support the work, either through Patreon or PayPal. If you like having an ad-free content podcast not behind a paywall, please consider going to podfeed.com/Patreon or podfeed.com/PayPal to support the show. 31 seconds for that, by the way.
That's a second too long.
Steve says I get 30 seconds and that's it.
So are you going to include Bodhi?
I am.
All right. We get to hear a little bit of that?
It's been sitting a long time.
Yeah.
Sure. Have we got time?
Yeah. It's, we got 15 minutes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on. That's supposed to have, oh, that does have both voices. Okay. Option T.
No plink with Bodhi?
Oh, actually, we might we do. We have a Bodhi plink.
Here, Al. This will maybe make up for no Bart plink.
Oh, wait. Well, if you guys want plinks, I got the Snotty Tom plink. Here's the Spotty Tom plink they wanted.
Okay.
Get ready.
Plink.
Passive aggressive Tom.
Passive aggressive plink. Yes.
Oh.
Plink.
It's one of the best. Oh, here. Yeah. Okay. So here's Bodhi.
Plink.
Oh.
Not worth keeping.
He didn't put a lot into it. Oh, I'm sorry. I talked over
really
the plink.
didn't.
Plink.
Yeah. I've seen better. Oh, he did both too. Okay. I thought he only did. Okay. So.
Sounds like an Eeyore plink from Ed.
Yeah. So actually, I wonder whether his voice track sounds. Mine looks a little cleaner than his. Interesting. He's got bleed through of me. I'm going to keep mine, I think. What'd I just do?
Yeah, I don't know. That looked weird.
That happens sometimes. There we go. Support the show. If you aren't already subscribed to Bodhi Grimm's Kilowatt Podcast, I would like you to stop right now and go subscribe. Don't worry. I'll wait here. Okay, good. Now that everybody's subscribed, I want to welcome Bodhi for a new segment that he suggested for the NosillaCast. Welcome to the show, Bodhi.
Hi, Allison. Thanks for having me on.
One of the things I love about Bodhi's show is it's not all Tesla all the time. There is a lot of Tesla news because there's always a lot of Tesla news, but he's really good at looking at all the different kinds of cars, and I've learned so much about what is actually available to us in electric vehicles. And he suggested this new segment, which I think everybody might very likely be interested in. Why don't you describe what your vision is?
Okay, so one of the things that irritates me about electric vehicles is that they are very, very expensive. And for the average person who wants to buy an EV, you shouldn't be paying $700 or $800 a month in a car payment. I think that's ridiculous. So it is like my goal in my podcast to highlight electric vehicles that are actually affordable for people. Now, in a lot of cases, this is highlighting vehicles that actually haven't that aren't actually being produced right at the moment. But we do have. I picked 3 electric vehicles that I think are really cool, and I think the audience will think is cool as well. And the first one is being produced right now, and that's the Chevy Bolt. So I'm sure most people are familiar with the Chevy Bolt. It's been out for I think 6 years. Now? I
don't know a lot about it. I just know 2 people who have them and say it's the best car they've ever owned.
Yeah, it's a fantastic car. I will say, like, when I look at the Chevy Bolt, this is what I think. I think of somebody designed this car in the 80s based on what they thought that cars would look like in the early 2000s, not the teens of the 2000s, just like the early 2000s. It's not that sexy of a car, but it is a very good car. And
Rob Dunwood saying on the SMR podcast that he wasn't going to buy an electric vehicle until someone came out that didn't look like a mushroom.
yes. Yeah, for a while there was a design aesthetic that BMW had, that Faraday Motors had, Faraday Future, where it was just like this very not boxy, but just kind of swoopy, but kind of boxy design.
Rounded rectangles.
Yeah, just roundy, but it still ends up being very boxy.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that 100%.
But
if you're looking, Yeah, if you're looking for a car that could actually do the job of getting you from place to place in a environmentally friendly way, I think the Chevy Bolt is fantastic.
And that is a full EV.
It is a full EV. And I do want to say, because I tried to be fair. Now I know that there's other markets besides North America and Europe, but today I have cars for North America and I have cars for Europe. If we do this again, I will try and pick some vehicles for like the Asian markets and things like that.
Okay, cool.
But the Opel Ampera, which is the equivalent, it's the Ampera E. It's the equivalent of the Chevy Bolt, built on much of the same technology. And that's for Europe. And that car starts at 42,900 euros. Today, I tried to find vehicles that were going to start under 30,000 US dollars.
Okay, so 42,000 euro is $42,000, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's closer to 45.
No,
but
it's
in that
it's
range.
virtually identical. 42
Is it?
42 euros is $42.66
Okay, there
as
you go.
of this instant in time. So how much is this the Chevy Bolt?
The Chevy Bolt is right now, they're saying you can get it for $26,000. I've not seen it cheaper than $28,000. And I looked last night and I found it in New Jersey at $28,000, just a little bit above.
So the Opel Ampera is the same car, but it costs like 50% more money.
Well, here's the thing. There was a little battery problem with the Chevy Bolt where they were catching on fire. Not a lot of them caught on fire, but enough to where I think that Chevy, they had to halt production for a while. They had to go through some retooling. They had to work with LG, which is their supplier on the batteries and the battery control unit and all that stuff. And so I think the price is much to kind of
depressed.
I think it's more now of a compliance car for their other dirtier vehicles because they're probably selling this at a loss. So your loss or their loss is your gain.
Yeah. So my mother bought a Ford Pinto right after they found out that Ford Pintos would explode if you got in a rear end collision after they fixed the problems. And I remember thinking, Mom, what are you nuts? And she goes, no, I figured that's probably the safest car on the market. Like they would always fly airlines that had just had a crash if they could, they would target that because that's the one everybody's on their toes on that one, So not that you should definitely follow my mother's advice, but if you can get an electric vehicle for $28,000 that you can actually afford, take advantage of the fact that they did have a problem that they appear to have now fixed.
Yeah, they stopped production for a good long time. I honestly, because GM has this Ultium battery platform or Ultium platform, skateboard platform for their new EVs, like the Chevy Blazer EV, the Silverado EV, and the Hummer EV, and the Cadillac Lyriq. So that's all built on their Ultium, which is their new technology. I honestly thought that Chevy was going to be like, okay, we're going to halt here because they stopped production. And then we're going to move over to the Ultium platform, but they didn't. They're still on the same platform they built with LG originally. They just made safety there. Around the same time, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, or no, excuse me, the Hyundai Kona, and was having some of these fire issues as well. They were different. I can't remember which one was which, what the cause was, but it really, in the grand scheme of things, it was probably a fairly easy fix. They just needed to retool some things. It wasn't like the batteries were just spontaneously combusting. There was some problems internally with how things were being managed, and that's what caused the fires. It sounds like that's all fixed. I haven't heard of a recent fire on a Chevy Bolt.
So the Chevy Bolt is what the question everybody wants to know first is range and second is price. But so what kind of range do you get with the Bolt?
So we're looking at 259 miles of range.
Oh, that's really respectable.
It's respectable, but when and most people who own EVs know that you can't necessarily charge to 100% on a regular basis.
And it's also a lie. Like you have to have a tailwind. It has to be warm out.
Right.
Don't turn on the air conditioning.
Correct. That's all correct. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's like
for what most
you
people
just have to
really
get used
need.
to it.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Aliha just wrote, there's efforts now to try and make accessible design a part of the building of self-driving cars, so hopefully one day blind people can own them. You know what I'm hoping happens, I've heard people talking about, is why do we have to own the cars at all? What if everything is you just press a button and a car drives up and you just get into it? We could have fewer cars, we could have fewer cars on the road, fewer cars parked. We wouldn't have to have driveways, garages. Nobody keeps their cars in the garages but me and Steve in the entire universe, apparently. So you could basically change the design of houses. I mean, that's the future. I like that future a lot.
Like our Waymo experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And that
All
actually
right.
drove pretty well.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
I'm going to throw the other two cars in the chat just so people
Pictures?
know what
Yeah.
Bodhi talked about, the 3 low-cost EVs.
Yeah, that Aptera was pretty crazy.
Yeah. That looks like a tricycle.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a real car. Like in 2022, it's supposed to
Yeah.
be coming out. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
there are tricycle-based vehicles that are on the road now.
That Scion is, wow, that's rough.
Yeah,
But
it's more traditional.
More traditional. No, it's covered in solar panels.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
made
solar
of solar panels. So it gains. I think they said
Oh,
was it 40 or 70 miles a week.
huh. Interesting.
If it's sitting in complete sunlight.
Wow.
Let me see how we finished off. For coming on, Bodhi. This was cool.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it.
All right. Ooh, I got 4 minutes. Here we go. Well, I thought that was a whole lot of fun, and I hope Buddy comes back as more cars get into the affordable category for electric vehicles. But that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me? I've told you a few times, but I hear people still ask me, what's your email address? What's Allison@podfeed.com. If you have questions or a suggestion, just send it on over, and I almost always answer people. You can follow me on Twitter @Podfeed. If you want to join in the fun of this conversation, you can join our Slack community, where even Bart hangs out sometimes, podfeed.com/Slack. Remember, everything good starts with podfeed.com, like podfeed.com/Slack. You can support the show at podfeed.com/Patreon or with a one-time donation at podfeed.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeed.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. And don't forget to join us at podfeed.com/chat for the live event, or I guess it's pre-recorded event from Apple. What is that? The week after next. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. 3 weeks. All right, John, who's taking over?
Wait. The week after next, it's this coming week, isn't it?
Shoot, is it this week?
It's the 7th, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Let me fix that. For the live event, or I guess it's pre-recorded event from Apple. What? No, I don't want that linked. Nope. Wrong one. Oh, for the love of Pete. That's what I want to do. This coming Wednesday. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. Boy, that sounded weird. Pre-recorded event from Apple. This coming. That's what I want to do. Should have just redone that whole segment, but. Event from Apple this coming Wednesday. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. I think that's going to do. Oh, wait.
Aaliyah wanted just a reminder that you don't pronounce the H in Aaliyah.
Oh,
Just a
Aaliyah,
friendly reminder.
I think you're going to have to come more consistently for me to ever remember that. I try. I do. You realize how many people's names I'm trying to remember? Like Batfink 2001 is Sheamus, and Big in Virginia is Kevin, and Mr.
That's the
Ed
hardest
is
one right there, Kevin.
Ed. Well, I'm pretty good at Ed. That one. NASA Nut is John. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Someday, if you come consistently, I bet I get better at it. But that's just because I want you
A
to
little
show up.
motivation there. Huh?
Oh, chapter mark. Did Kevin tell us to chapter mark?
There it is.
Aha. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, we added Tom.
I have 9, but that includes your plug. Your
I support the show.
yeah.
So do I.
Oh.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What did I miss? Read them off.
Okay. DTNS.
DTNS. 741,
Tom.
742.
742. Marianne. Photo triage. Oh,
Uh-huh.
here it is. I have something. Migration Assistant open twice because I was editing.
Okay.
Good. Migration Assistant.
Support the show.
Support the
buddy.
show and Bodhi.
All right, good.
So we're good.
All right, we will. Hey, don't come in 3 weeks. Come Wednesday. See what we're all going to waste our money on.
Wait, 3 weeks.
John was saying, see you in 3 weeks.
Ah.
Yeah, actually, Aaliyah, if you could change your name to be Aaliyah without an H.
That's like Lindsay the daughter. So we remember it's our daughter.
Exactly. Right? All right. Now can I say goodbye, Steve?
Yes. No, I was joking, Kevin. You're not the hardest to remember.
Goodbye, Kevin.
Goodbye.
Cut us off, Steve.